I'm in the Yankee clubhouse and Cole walked in. And it's an obvious thought, John, but I looked at him and I said, if they had Cole, I think they might be the best team in the sport. John, we sent up the bat signal today, and Alex Anthopoulos, the president of baseball operations of the Braves, the surging Braves, answered our call.
Yeah, we can't forget about the Braves. Started 0-7. They look en route to the playoffs, at least to me. Alex does a great job with his real job, and he does a great job here always, and we appreciate him coming on. Looking forward to that one.
Yeah, they get Spencer Strider back. We're talking Monday. On Tuesday. Ronald Acuna Jr. is getting closer in his rehab from his second torn ACL. He could join them as soon as this weekend against the Padres. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about how he views Max Fried, who he lost in free agency to the Yankees, the NL East, the NL in general, and a lot more. You and I will talk Subway Series at the top. We'll play hit and error at the bottom if you stick with us on the show with Joel, Sherman, and John Heyman. John, we did a preview show last week for the Subway Series, and it's hard to ignore that the Subway Series has now been played. The Yankees took two out of three. They were all pretty interesting, dramatic games. Even the games the Yankees won big, 6-2. The game ends with Soto batting on Friday night and the tying run in the on-deck circle. On Sunday night, it's 2-2 going to the bottom of the eighth, and the Yankees score 6 runs. And the other game was a tie game in the ninth inning that the Mets won 3-2. 143,000 people came out for the three games at Yankee Stadium, and many of them, John, let Juan Soto know that they were displeased that he was playing right field for the Mets. And Soto, look, he had a poor series. He went 1 for 10. He drew a bunch of walks, didn't do great in the field, really. And kind of, John, this is where I'd like to start. You could convince me a lot of things about a lot of players, but the one thing I would have never thought was Juan Soto would be kind of like overwhelmed or something. Like he's such a great clutch player. We watch it last year. He's playing for money. He's turned down 440 million from the Nationals. We know the Padres would have done something if he would have blinked twice, towards them, over 500 million. So he's playing for a ton of money. He's playing in New York for the first time in his life. He's playing in October in New York in the World Series, and he's great. So I can't, and he's doing it with verve and swagger. I have not seen that guy now for 7 weeks. I certainly, as you were, I was there all weekend. I didn't see that guy. I don't know what's going on, but I don't see that guy. And that's what 240 doesn't shock me as much as not seeing Juan Soto so far.
Yeah, I mean, we've barely seen the shuffle. You're right about that. I think you have a point there. I'm really not exactly sure what's going on. It did sound like 50,000 against one, which is what he predicted to us, but I don't think it was quite that bad. There were some Mets fans, but it just sounded like they were adding to the booing, I think, when they were cheering. So it's certainly for a lot of people, that would be overwhelming. But as you point out, he has been great in clutch situations, in hostile environments. This is his fourth team. I mean, this is the first time he's actually decided where he was going to go. He was traded the previous couple times. So obviously, not only did he decided to move 8 miles to the south and east to the competitor in New York. So he knew what he was in for. I don't think that's what's affecting him at all. But his swing was a little off coming in. I think he had a hot streak at the beginning of May, but he has cooled down. I think he's just not really that comfortable with his swing right now. I think that's the thing. I know that there was a report, quote, it was in the 13th paragraph. I think you might have counted down. It wasn't very strong, that the Mets people are concerned that he's not acclimating himself to the team or doesn't love the team. I don't believe that. I think he's an introvert. I do think he's an introvert. I think, the fact that he greeted the Yankee people enthusiastically, I mean, he knew them, he knows them a little bit better. That's all. And I don't think that's what's affecting him. I think he will be fine. I don't think it's anything to worry about. And certainly wasn't really played as a definitive, he's upset. We know that things aren't going well or anything like that, because as you said, it was in the 13th graph as a mention from something that people are concerned about. they might be concerned, but does it mean that it's true? Is he not comfortable there? I really don't believe that he is uncomfortable there. I think he's uncomfortable with the fact that he hasn't really gotten his swing together and hasn't gotten his game together.
Yeah, look, Francisco Lindor, who's probably a Hall of Fame bound player, had trouble in his first year in New York. And
A lot of
ultimately,
people have, yeah.
right? Yeah, it turned out the only thing that surprised me is he was in New York last year, Soto, in his walk year, in the postseason. Like every little check mark to say, hey, are you going to wilt to this? He kind of has already gone through. So like it is that's what's just a little surprising. He feels whatever. I will say, like Soto is an independent contractor. That doesn't mean he's a bad teammate. He prepares all like he never hits outdoors. He's got his own program. He's always the last onto the field for each half inning the team plays defense. Whatever he's doing, to kind of like concentrate, etc. And by the way, like Jacob deGrom was an independent contractor when he was here, and he was a great pitcher. Like, he wasn't like some rah-rah guy who was in the middle of everything. So I always want to take that out. If I thought Soto was a bad teammate, I would just say it on it. I don't think he's a bad teammate. I just think he's does the thing to be great, and we look for things when he's not great because we're through 25. He was Ted Williams, and here in age 26, he's not Ted Williams so far for 7 weeks. I will say that because it was New York, John, the Met fans have kind of gotten behind him. I do think he needs to pick it up now. Otherwise, the Met fans aren't going to be behind him. I think that the fact that he was hugging Yankees and stuff, we see how touchy fans are about all this extra stuff. And so I do think he's hitting 132 with runners in scoring position. It's just not Juan Soto. He's great in the clutch. I don't know. It's like he was replaced by his evil dour clone right now. And it's just not him.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly hasn't hit like him, but if anyone was expecting a great right fielder, just because he was nominated or was a finalist for Gold Glove, I mean, you can't go by that. I mean, people could complain about the way the writers vote. I'm not really sure how that came about. He's an average right fielder, if you're being kind.
We're being
He
kind.
missed a cutoff man. One of his throws was just okay. I did make a nice running catch. I mean, I don't think we can really complain about that or his base running. In fact, he's picked up his stolen base game. He's stolen several bases already. Should he have run harder on that grounder? LeMahieu made a nice back end. Yes, he should have run harder on that one. No question about it. I'm not going to read something into that. He was brought to the Mets for one reason. He's a Hall of Fame hitter, and he has not been that guy to this point. He's been well above average, but not anything close to a $765 million player. He was paid for hitting, and that's really what he's got to do. You're not, if their expectation is you're going to get a guy who's always hustling 100% of the time and is a great right fielder, you've got the wrong guy.
Yeah, his outfield play is exposed more at Citi Field in particular, which is vast, as opposed to Yankee Stadium, which is not. Like you see that he's not a great route taker. But I would not ignore, John, that David Stearns, who I think is a very honest public speaker when it comes to talking about his plans and what he thinks of his team, said he was, we need to pick it up on defense, and he meant that in general. And I think they have an endemic problem. Soto's not a very good right fielder. Alonso's not a very good first baseman. Vientos is not a very good third baseman. And Nimmo's kind of like lost a little that quick twitch and left. Well, those are your four corner players, and Lindor has like more errors at this time than he's ever had in his career. I just don't believe that will continue
No,
either.
he'll be fine.
Like I
Yeah.
assume that Francisco Lindor will be great on defense, and I assume that Juan Soto will be great on offense. Let's see if we could do a pivot
I'll,
here.
I'll just say one thing about that. I do think there is a little bit of at least a short-term solution for that. Beatty is actually good at
Yes.
third base now. Have Beatty play third and have Vientos be the DH. I mean, I guess they don't want to, a Winker's out for now. I mean,
Yeah.
that's complicated when he comes back, and I'm sure they don't want to just, lose Marte completely and not play him at all. But I mean, that would certainly clear it up in one of the positions because I do think Beatty made several good plays in the game that they did win. I mean, and I will say this also about the Yankees and the Mets. We're not going to draw too many conclusions over 3 games, but the Yankees had their three best pitchers, whereas the Mets, I don't want to say the three worst pitchers, but Senga wasn't pitching, right? So, the lineup, the matchups did favor the Yankees, and we shouldn't be surprised they've won 2 out of 3.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think one of the reasons the Mets won the game they won was because Brett Baty played third base. And I think part of the reason the Mets lost the two games they lost is Mark Vientos played third base. He played poorly at third base and cost them runs in both games. It was an issue. And I'm with you. I'm wondering, what Marte's string is to hold on to even a roster spot, especially if Vientos becomes the DH, but he has to pick it up and hit also. That's the other thing. The dirty little secret over the weekend, as everyone was paying attention to Soto, was Vientos didn't hit, Alonso didn't hit, Lindor didn't hit. The Mets scored 7 runs in 3 days. They went 4 for 25 with guys in scoring position. Let's see if we could do a pivot. Is it could hardly have gone better for the Yankees against Soto besides shutting him down, it's like all the things they spent on that Warren Soto
Yeah.
worked. Fried pitched great last night. Bellinger was 7 for 11 with 3 or 4 walks and hit the grand slam last night. Goldschmidt got big hits in a couple of the games they won, including last night again. Devin Williams came in twice, went 1-2-3, 1-2-3, and on Friday night was as dominant as I've seen him all season. It was a kind of like, hey, your front office didn't crawl into the fetal position. They did something after losing Soto, and it looked good.
Yeah, to have $760 million lying around, you probably can't blow that, but they certainly did not, right? They spent very, very well. Fried is obviously outstanding. He or Skubal is the Cy Young winner at this point. Obviously, we're early in the season. He's a terrific pitcher. Goldschmidt has been great. I know he's very good in the second half last year, but he's great defensively. I mean, he's terrific all around. And Bellinger has now come around. I mean, I think I knew playing in New York is tough. Even if you played in LA and Chicago, it's tough. He was the best player in Florida, and he came in, started poorly. He was chasing. He wasn't good with 2 strikes, something that he really turned around in Chicago and was much better at. So he seemed to be anxious to me, and now he's turned it around, and he's an outstanding player. When we see him on defense, he's terrific. He's got a great arm. He's got speed. They pivoted extremely well, and that they're got to give them credit. They did a great job, and they're getting contributions that were unexpected as well, right? I mean, Grisham has been very good overall, great as a matter of fact. Rice has done a lot. So, they look like a powerhouse in the American League. Obviously, that's the weaker league, as we mention every week, but right now they look like, if not the best team, the second best team in that league.
You know something, John? As a way to close the segment is I'll mention to you something I did our Yankee webcast this morning with Ryan Sampson, and I said, yesterday I'm in the Yankee clubhouse and Cole walked in, and it's an obvious thought, John, but I looked at him and I said, if they had Cole, I think they might be the best team in the sport. Like
Yeah.
it feels like that's the thing they're missing. Now, there's no crying in baseball. Everybody's missing, Mania hasn't pitched for the Mets. Who knows when Blake Snell or Glass now is pitching again for the Dodgers. Like everyone's down something. But I think the Yankees have done a better job, like 1-26. Like the bullpen is really good, better with Loizica back. You saw that this weekend, and the better version of Williams. Their lineup is longer and better left-handed than it's been for a long, long time. And I looked and said, man, if they had Cole and they knew Hill was coming back in July, I
Right.
think it would. I think you could argue it would be as good as the Dodgers. It's spilled milk, but it just hit me yesterday that they've done such a good job losing Soto and without Cole, who were two of the big three last year with Judge, that I kind of like momentarily forgot. Oh, if they had Cole, what would this look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a surprising start in some sense. I mean, the Yankees lost, obviously, Soto. Stanton hasn't been around. Their offense has been the best. Uh, you know, uh, Look at the Mets team. I mean, the Mets pitching, nobody expected that staff to be great, right? They lost Montas and they lost Mania, and their pitching has been better than anybody's. Some might say the Mets offense has been a little bit down from what we expected, and the Yankee offense has been up, and the pitching. I mean, they're doing their job, and that's the one thing I guess we're not surprised about. Heel and Cole out. They've basically done about what you'd expect. Fried's been really good. Schmidt's coming around. Warren looks a little bit better. They're doing fine, but everything else has been a shock to me. The Yankee offense the best, the Mets pitching the best, the Mets offense not the best lineup in baseball so far. It's been okay, been pretty good, but not the best.
Not the best. Francisco Alvarez's tout from spring training isn't holding up so
Well, he's
far.
going to have to do better himself too, right? If
Yes.
he's going to talk a big game, you're going to have better than a 700 OPS. We got to be honest about that. And the other guy, frankly, is the best. I don't know. Is he the best? I don't think he's the best defensive catcher in the game, but he's one of the best, I think,
Yeah,
right?
Torrance is
Torrens for
really
doing
good.
100,000, pretty
Yeah.
good. But I mean, obviously, you're going to play Alvarez because the potential is there for 25 home runs. We just haven't seen it for over a year now.
Yeah, it's not just the Soto issue. They have some issues in their lineup right now, though. If they're going to kind of, keep up with all the Joneses in the NL East. One of those coming hard on the outside is the Atlanta Braves, who started 0-7, got over 500 on the weekend. Their president of baseball operations, Alex Anthopoulos, joins us next on the show. John and I are thrilled to be joined by friend of the program, Alex Anthopoulos, the president of baseball operations. He's run baseball operations. This is year number 8 in Atlanta for Alex. In the first 7, they made the playoffs. They won the division title 6 times, and of course, World Series champion under Alex's guidance in 2021. Alex Anthopoulos, thank you for joining us on the show.
Glad to be on, guys.
And Alex, on a moment's notice, we reached out to you and you said, "Got an off day, let's do it today," and we couldn't wait to jump in with you. And I wonder if a place to start is your team won 2 out of 3 against Boston over the weekend and got over 500 over the weekend for the first time this year. As experienced as you are, as successful as you are, when it's 0-7, when it's not going well at the beginning of the season, is there any moment of lost faith? Like, did we get this all wrong? Or do you believe in the institution and if so, why?
Yeah, so look, it's definitely not enjoyable. That goes without saying. And ultimately, I just feel like this is what 6 years. I mean, in terms of GM years, 6 in Toronto. This is year 8, so 13 going into 14. So I feel like I've experienced so many lows, so many mistakes, so many failures, so many streaks. That you realize that it's not going to continue. It's not sustainable. And look, likewise, we've been part of some winning streaks. I think the most I've experienced is 11 in a row. Those aren't sustainable either. So I think ultimately when you're going through that, the sample size is so small. It's magnified, of course, because it's the beginning of the season. So, it's going to be a topic of conversation, but I know it's cliche, but you just kind of grind through it and you realize that you're going to come out on the other end. The only thing when you're going through it is you're like, okay, when is this going to end? Is it going to be 7? Is it going to be 9? Is it going to be 10? At some point it's going to end. You just don't know when, but it is a relief. No doubt about it. You finally get the first one under your belt. And look, it's normal to think, okay, well, how do you dig your way out of getting back to 500 first, right? So you're thinking, okay, even if you're 500 from here, you got to win 2 in a row, lose 1. So, we went through this in 2021. We didn't get to over 500 till early August. And we lived through that, and that wasn't fun. So, look, you never take anything for granted. You can think you have a good team on paper. You're still working. You're still grinding. You're still looking for anything you can do to help as a front office. But you do realize that this is part of it, not to that extent, but you realize you're going to go through these spells.
I'll do the math since you said GM years. It's like dog years. So
Oh, yeah.
13 is 7 years, 7 times 13, 91 years. So you look good for 91 years doing the
A lot
job.
more white. If you see some pictures of the
Yeah, I'm shocked. I didn't know you
Yep.
were good for
Yep.
you.
Stress.
So what do you think now? I mean, I saw a stat over the last, I think it's 3 or 4 weeks. You have the best record in the National League. National League is tough, though. I mean, no team that started 0-7 has made the playoffs. Are you going to make it?
Yeah, so that's come up. I mean, when you're sitting around and whether it's clubhouse or whatnot, I think when we got back to 500, everyone said, "Oh yeah," and somebody mentioned that. My only answer to that, and I haven't studied who those teams were, is my guess is the other teams that started 0-7. I'm assuming it's before the wild card era, or at least not. It was pre-2022 with the expanded playoff spot. So I do wonder if we really dug into it, maybe it would show the same thing. Of these 0-7 teams, if there had been a sixth playoff spot in the NL, would they have gotten in or not, and so on. But I mean, look, there's a first for everything. I think once you get back to 500 and you're within striking distance of these other teams, you feel like you're starting from scratch and you're starting over. Not you can't take it away. We definitely didn't help things. And look, we made the postseason last year on the last day of the season, so we realized the urgency, the importance of each game. But the NL is incredibly challenging. I was saying this even in spring before the season started. You look at the six teams that made the postseason in 2024 in the NL, and then the teams that didn't get in, that are right there that got better this offseason. And I don't want to leave anybody out, but there's obvious teams like the Diamondbacks that were right there that won 89 games just like us, and the Mets and Cubs and Giants and Reds. So there's obviously teams I haven't included there, but easily 10, 11, 12 teams in the NL that very deserving and quality to be in the playoffs, and you've only got 6 spots. So not an ideal year to get off to a slow start, but I'm sure for everyone else, hopefully it's not us, teams that go through a skid in the middle of the year towards the end, it's not going to be ideal. It's going to be a grind. The NL is as deep as I've seen it in the years I've been here with the Braves.
You're so blessed to have somebody be able to translate that into the New York Post, which is the American League sucks. I appreciate that you did that, Alex. For our
When I
list.
was in the American League, it was insane.
Yeah.
The AL East with Manny and Ortiz and stuff. But go on, sorry.
One of the reasons I think people saw a light at the end of the tunnel, if you could kind of dig to 500 maybe by Memorial Day, which you did this, is arguably your best starting pitcher and your best everyday player have, Strider made one start. Acuna hasn't played for you all season. I believe you're getting Strider back. We're talking on Monday, on Tuesday night. Why don't we start there? How is he? And what are you expecting from him from now through the end of the year?
Yeah, so Strider will be starting tomorrow. We activated him today, so he's lined up to face the Washington Nationals tomorrow. Made one outing against Toronto. Stuff was good. Tough for me to put expectations on him. When we signed him to an extension, I'd said this at the time. I'd never seen anybody like him before. And even though I'm still in my 40s, I feel like I've seen a lot of great players and great young arms. And I think he's the fastest ever in terms of the strikeout rate and so on. And he beat John Smoltz's strikeouts in a season, and just the combination of stuff, work ethic, mentality, makeup. I've never seen it, and his talent. So to put expectations on him, the sky's the limit. I'm not saying that's going to be in 25, but I feel good every time he takes the ball. He gives us a chance to win the pitch count, at least for tomorrow. Being Tuesday, we'll be careful with him just because he has missed some time. He threw a sim game back in Atlanta last Wednesday. So that'll be something that the manager and the coaching staff will watch, and the training staff. But it's definitely good to get his feet wet to get him going. And then we have a bunch of off days, so he'll get some rest going forward from here on out, and then ease his way into the season. But we just need him to be 1 of 5, give us a chance to win games. Like you said, him and Ronald will be back pretty soon, the way he's going. And look, I think we've got opportunity and room for internal improvement with some of our players that haven't gotten up to their career norms, that still have some upside. So I do believe our best baseball is yet to come. Now, that's not to take anything away from the other teams, because those other teams are already great and they're not slowing down. So hopefully we're going to stay in it, and see where we're at come trade deadline.
Since you brought up Acuna, what's the timetable there? When's he back?
Yeah, so he is traveling with the minor league team, and he will be spending, at least, we don't have days per se, but we've played him back-to-back days in the outfield to 6 innings, played a third day in a row where he DH'd. We'd like to get him as close to 9 innings as we can in the field. We feel pretty good about his timing at the plate and at bats. Most of the time you send these guys on rehab, position players, it's about getting at bats, getting timing. He's been playing in sim games and live batting practice since spring training opened. So this is about just getting his legs underneath him. Does not attempted a stolen base and is not played 9 innings in the field. So we'll spend the week working him through that. We'll check in daily with the staff, but you should see the workload increase starting on Tuesday. Day game Wednesday on the road there, so he'll be off, and then play again on Thursday. So he'll play 2 of the next 3. but we'll continue to see how it does. But he's getting very, very close.
While he was on this injury rehab, you know, Jared Kelnick doesn't run out of ball, and he put out a social media post of essentially saying, if it was me, I would have been pulled from the game, as he was a few years ago. Look, he took it down, he apologized. Do you have a Ronald Acuna problem about his behavior at all?
No, and it's tough because people ask me all the time, what is he like? And you see the guy on the field, electric player, top 5 player in the game, top 10 if you want to really expand it. If you're around him and if you see him in the clubhouse, he's shy, he's quiet, he's reserved. It's out of character, really, when you think about when you're around him. He came in, was very contrite and very sincere. And look, I mean, he's took as much accountability as he could for it. I mean, no one gave him a script, no one tell him what to do, what to say. He addressed the team. Again, he's a shy guy, and it's tough because you see this guy that's really exuberant on the field, but you get inside, you won't even know he's there. So, look, it was a moment, it happened, but all you can do is be accountable at that point. And for him to go into Snit's office and apologize to him, to address the team, he chose to do that. No one asked him to do it. You know, that credit goes to him. All you can do at that point, what's done is done. You move forward, you take accountability and you move forward. He's part of this organization. You don't want to take away all the good as well. I mean, he's been here since I've been here. 2018 was his call up. He's been great for us. We've never had any issues with him. There's a lot of things he does behind the scenes that are phenomenal, but it was a moment and it was addressed.
Brian Snitker, your manager, told me, and I think Bob Nightingale, maybe one or two others, that he's going to see how it goes before he decides whether he wants to come back another year. What's your position on this? Can he just come back if he wants to come back? And where do you think he stands? Is he going to manage another year? Because he is right at about 70 right now.
Yeah, so look, Snit, I think it's been, he's been here 49. I think this is his 49th year now. He's going to be part of this organization. Again, he's not officially a Braves Hall of Famer, but that's a foregone conclusion. He's been great in terms of his future, how many years he wants to do this, all that kind of stuff. That's for him. What I can tell you from my standpoint, when I got here, I didn't know him. I knew very little of him. Obviously, I got the job and you start doing some research and so on, but he's been an incredible partner. And I didn't know what I was going to have when I came into this. And, the level of trust and the working relationship that we have, it's been great. And in the GM chair, everyone will say the importance of the manager GM relationship. He's been such a great partner. He's got the respect of the clubhouse. The success speaks for itself. I mean, I still sit there and you think about the 14 divisions that Bobby Cox and John Sherholtz said, but I sit here and I think about even 6 that Snit was behind, and then 7 playoffs in a row. And he's dealt with a lot of things off the field, on the field, not for himself, just around the team. Turnover, never complains. There's times I'll go into his office and say, I'm sorry I didn't give you a better bullpen, or sorry I didn't do this or that. And he's the same guy. He's genuine. He's authentic. So I love being able to work with him. I'm grateful that he's been in this organization. And, things like how long he wants to do it, all that kind of stuff. He's earned that right for that to be his choice and so on. But I can't speak enough to the partnership that we've had and the success that we've had.
At the winter meetings when the Yankees lost out on Soto and pivoted quickly to Max Fried, I gave you a call and I said, what I know about Max Fried. I've seen him pitch dozens of games between the postseason and against the Mets in particular at Citi Field. And the first thing you said is, I know he's not going to be afraid. It's literally the first thing you said to me is, I know he's not going to be afraid to play in New York, play with a big contract, whatever. Even in your wildest imagination, 6-0 with a 1.29 ERA in 10 starts. What do you think about what you're watching from a distance from the guy who was your ace for a long period of time?
I mean, I know the number. I mean, he's had phenomenal years here. ERA's in the 2s, second in Cy Young to Sandy Alcantara one of the years. Pitched one of the biggest Braves in the history of the games for the history of the Braves. Game 6 of the World Series. Stepped up huge for us. To me, and I talked to him after he signed, and I told him, I said, obviously, tough for us, but incredible. Got the biggest contract in the history of the game for a left-handed starter, and well deserved. No one prepares better. He works his butt off, studies. The athleticism is off the charts. Won a silver, was the last National League guy to win a silver slugger, but just he's, obviously we don't have him, and he got an unbelievable contract, and I'm thrilled for him. And I told him this as well, is he's going to have an opportunity to be in the postseason basically every single year of his career. I mean, the Yankees don't really miss the postseason, and he was part of an incredible 7-year stretch here that he can legitimately go wire to wire and make the playoffs the entire time. So can't say enough good things about him. He was great from a front office standpoint. He was a partner in a lot of ways too. If you needed something, we had to move stuff around with the rotation, this or that. Call him in the offseason. Can you dig on so-and-so you may have played with? We need to find out about the makeup of someone and so on. Great on the field, great off the field, represents the organization incredibly well. I said this 3-4 years ago. He's someone that's going to age exceptionally well because of the athleticism, how he takes care of himself, but he can just flat pitch. And he'd come into camp, and when I got here, it was fastball, curveball. And then eventually starts developing a slider. Then Cole Hamels comes in, starts tinkering with a changeup even more. Then starts tinkering with a two-seamer even more. And he's got the aptitude, the work ethic, just to continue to develop. So I think you're going to see Max Fried, obviously health for any starter. You don't know how that's going to go, but I think you're going to see Max Fried pitch as long as he wants and do all the little things, field his position, hold runners, all those kind of things, and have tremendous success. But like anything with all these guys, hopefully he goes till he's 40 plus, and that'll just end up being health. But I can't say enough good things.
I was going to ask something else, but I better follow up with the obvious here. I mean, we know that you've loved him forever. Why is he not a Brave? You're not in a small market.
Sure.
You've got no money, I know, to spend basically this winter. It's public. You're owned by a public entity. They'll even admit they made $70 million. Shouldn't he be a Brave?
Look, I mean, that's completely fair. Our payroll is top 10. It's been top 10 for a few years now. It's climbed. I mean, we're well over 200 million. I believe my first year we're in the 125 range in 2018. So we've grown significantly. That's credit to the fan base, attendance, Terry McGurk, our chairman. And I've said this, right? We want to keep all these guys, and we want it to become a difficult choice. And as these guys continue to be better and perform, and Max Fried's become one of the best left-handed starters in the game, and really paid like that, with the best free agent contract for a left-handed starter. So we had conversations that was written in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution a few years ago, couldn't come to an agreement. And look, the hardest part about this is you're trying to balance out paying the player what they're worth and also putting a good team around them. So in theory, you can do whatever number it might be, but you're also trying to balance out the roster and fill out a 26. So sincere about being here, gave us many opportunities. But look, as he continued to perform, it was going to be expensive, rightfully so. He earned that. And ultimately, we got to make tough decisions that you'd love to have all these guys. I don't want to talk about players on other teams, but I could talk about a lot of stars that have been free agents the last few years. Would you love to have those guys? Sure. But it's what can you put around them? And ultimately, we lost some guys in the offseason that we loved, right? We love Travis d'Arnaud, AJ Minter, Charlie Morton, Max Fried. Those are great mainstays and Braves. But we're going to incorporate the Grant Holmeses and the AJ Smith-Sharbers and the Drake Baldwins because we have already made commitments to a significant amount of players. And I've said this, and it's not what everybody wants to hear, but there's only so much pie to go around, right? And even though our payroll is growing and growing, you want great players, you want all-stars all over the place, but you're going to have to make tough calls, and you want all these guys to win MVPs and Cy Youngs and make it challenging on you. And look, at the end of the day, he got an unbelievable contract. New York got a great starter who's going to be great for them going forward. And we lost a great player, but other players are going to get opportunities. We're grateful for the success we had with Max, what he did here. I'm grateful I got to spend all that time with him, but we're always trying to balance putting a team together and making the payroll fit.
You mentioned win Cy Youngs. You did have a left-hander win the Cy Young last year who wasn't Max Fried. It was Chris Sale. And his first 5 starts this year, his ERA was over 6. And in his last 5 starts, his ERA is under 2. Uh, it's a little like your team. He didn't get off well, and he's righted himself. Again, just because of age, injury history, do you have the uh-oh moment considering what his workload was? And already you lost Ronaldo Lopez, whose workload was heavier last year. And if not, why not? What's turned around quickly for Sale?
Yeah, look, when we acquired him, I understood. Even I told Terry McGurk at the time, I said, look, this is, always you try to get a sense of how transactions might be received and so on. And I told him, I said, look, this is going to be loud, right? Like Vaughn Grissom's a really good young player for us, great in the clubhouse. Chris Sale has been very injury prone the last few years. We looked at the file. We did feel like there was a lot of freak things. Yes, he did have Tommy John, but some of the other stuff, the comebacker, the falling off the bike, and if you look at Chris Sale's career prior to the Tommy John, he was a very durable guy. I mean, he was in the Cy Young voting, I think 6 or 7 years in a row, but he was a very durable guy, has Tommy John, and then a bunch of freak things happened, but his history had shown that he was durable. So we felt like he came back that last year with the Red Sox, was able to log some innings. So now we had a better base and foundation going forward. And we gave him extra days of rest whenever we could last season, knowing we wanted to take him 6 months and hopefully into the playoffs. So we felt like we were getting, of course, he's getting older, but we were getting the guy that was, in terms of from a durability standpoint, the guy that he was going into 2020 or the end of 2019. And so no, and look, I think the biggest thing is when guys aren't performing, whether it's offensively or on the mound, you're looking at stuff, right? Is the stuff for the most part, is it intact? And I remember telling Chris, he had a rough start against the Rays in Tampa, and we were facing Toronto, and I saw him there, and I told him, I said, because he was upset, you could tell he's upset. Things weren't going well for him. I said, I've never seen you so upset in the mound, and he was throwing hard. And I said, I feel great when you take the ball. His stuff was still outstanding, just for whatever reason, command a little off, some balls being hit, but you rely on the stuff, and you look like the exact same guy, just the results weren't the same. And I'd say the same thing from an offensive standpoint with the player. The OPS might not be there, but you're seeing the quality at bats, how hard they're hitting the ball. You're putting it all together. Is there a health issue? And there wasn't anything wrong. So you ultimately know that that will turn and that will come around. You got to wait. But there were no flags. There were no concerns. So, we feel good about Chris going forward. And again, I just think sometimes things can get a little bit overblown, especially when you take a giant step back and you realize you didn't really have a ton of arm ailments. That last year with the Red Sox, he had something with his scap, but for the most part, it was a lot of freak things that had occurred to him, and he's been a durable guy.
He looks good now, and he won a Cy Young. That trade was a big win. Obviously, you've done a great job, but I'm going to ask you about one that, if you have any regrets on. Now, it seemed very, very logical what happened with the first baseman. I guess it was 3 years ago now. You got a guy who's younger, more years, lower per year, terrific defensively, like Freeman, plays every day. Matt Olson is a terrific player, but he's not Freddie Freeman. And of course, as we've seen now over the last few years, as he's left, he's solidified a Hall of Fame career. He's a franchise player and, bordering on an all-time great player. So, obviously what you did was logical. You brought in a great first baseman. But do you have any second thoughts about that, or even a half a second thought? Freeman, I don't think any of us thought he'd get better in his 30s, but he has done it.
Look, we said this at the time when he was here. Hall of Fame player, always on a Hall of Fame track. Obviously, it's been well documented. There were discussions and so on. We didn't get the deal done. But in terms of ability, talent, work ethic, durability, all those things, there was no doubt about that at all. We had a lot of conversations. Ultimately, the deal didn't get done. and then ultimately you have to decide, okay, we need to fill a spot here. So we've never looked at it as comparisons and things like that. Just like, if you lose a Max Fried or you lose a Charlie Morton or you lose an AJ Minter, you're just trying to make the team as good as you can. And ultimately, there's times for various reasons that you're going to lose players. So, one way or the other, you want to keep all these guys. You always do. The longer you're in these jobs with the same organization, you're likely going to lose players. And we've extended a lot, no doubt. You'd love to keep extending all of them. But, you do your best. You try to get things done. You're not going to bat 1,000 on all these and get them done. And then ultimately you try to fill holes. And obviously Matt's been phenomenal for us. He's done a great job. All the other players that we've had. I mean, it's been a really nice run for 7 years. You win the World Series. I think the big thing for us has been how do you sustain this, right? You see a lot of great organizations, great front offices win the World Series, and then they ultimately have to step back a little bit. It's at the tail end of their competitive window. Because look, at that point, you're trying to push in at the trade deadline. You're trading young players and so on, and you got to go all in. And look, we're proud of the fact that, win the World Series. The next year, we win 101 games in 22. Then after 2022, we win 104 games, and we get eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. And ultimately, we had some injuries in the rotation. And I think when I look back now, you're always looking at the playoff opportunities in my mind. We weren't as deep in the starting rotation as we could have been or should have been. So not to take anything away from the players that have been here, the Hall of Famers and so on, but you always look back in my mind is because we've been to the postseason, what could we have done? What could we have changed going into the playoffs? What could we have added at the deadline and so on? And I look at, 22 good offense, 23 historic from an offensive standpoint. We were light on the mound, and that's the one where you second guess and you say, should we have added another starter? Should we have added another reliever? Should we have signed so-and-so in the offseason? Should we have pushed and traded for so-and-so? Because we had a good offense. And look, as great as any offensive player is, you need a full 9, right? And like anything else, you can have MVPs across the league. They're not going to the World Series every year or winning the World Series each year. You need a deep, complete team. So if I'm looking at the playoff runs that we've had, and hopefully we can get back there again in 25, we've been short on the mound, whether it's injury and so on. And that's probably the one area that you question. Not to say you don't look back at all your moves, but the ones that keep you up at night are for me are those playoff opportunities. And I look back, Toronto, we lost to the Royals in the ALCS, and we were talking to the Oakland A's about Ben Zobrist quite a bit. And he hurt us. He hurt us in the CS. And I look back and I say, well, should we have done Ben Zobrist? He was traded before we acquired Price. Some of the same players would have been needed, but those are the ones that you really go back and forth on.
Yeah, one thing to be fair, you're not going to mention the money now, but your offer to Freeman, actually, when you consider the years, the dollar per year, the cost of living, the deferment that he got, your offer actually was better than the one he took in Los Angeles. So maybe hard to regret.
Yeah, I've never. Bottom line is, you enter negotiations, you try to get deals done. Our job is to get them done, and that's the bottom line. And we didn't get it done. We've had, like I said, we've had many conversations with many players, our own free agents and so on. You try to get deals done. Your job is to try to get deals done. They don't all get done. That's just reality of it. Beyond that kind of stuff, we never get into it at all. I think at the end of the day, things develop the way they are. I love Freddie. He's great. He was great here, and he's had great success, and he's going to be a Hall of Famer. He was going to be a Hall of Famer before he left.
Somebody who was great there and left and maybe coming back is Craig Kimbrell. He's throwing well in the minor leagues for you right now. Did you like that segue, Alex?
Very smooth.
Very smooth. I'm thinking about going into this someday.
Yeah.
Is he on your radar? Like, what does he have to do to get called up? And how close to Greg Kimbrell? Craig Kimbrell, you mentioned Hall of Fame. He might be a Hall of Famer too.
Oh, yeah.
Where is he in your
So I
estimation?
would say, yeah, look, I believe he's going to be a Hall of Famer. I mean, track record, durability. We are hopeful and optimistic we can get first half of 2024 Craig Kimbrell with the Orioles. He pitched really well. had some things going on in the second half of the season, and things didn't go well for him. So I don't think anyone's expecting Atlanta Braves Craig Kimbrell throwing 100 miles an hour and so on. But this guy's been a very effective closer, reliever for years. So much so that he had a case to be an all-star last season in the first half. So he's been slowly building up. His velocity, starting to climb. Say his last 2 or 3 outings have been very strong, been very good. So he's definitely on the radar, definitely being talked about. We're not ready to make a move right now, but he's trending in the right direction is probably the best way to put it. And especially the last 2 or 3 have been really strong.
Your offense isn't quite what it was a few years ago. Last year was a little bit down. You still made the playoffs, as you always do, because you guys do a great job there. How concerned are you, though? I mean, Albies, Harris have not been great. And I mean, Riley and Olsen, frankly, have been very good, but it feels like they even have more in them. Obviously brought in 2 guys who have some New York roots in the outfield, Kelnick and Verdugo. And, where do you stand with them as well? Do you feel like this offense is going to come around a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no doubt. A lot of things weren't working out at the beginning. Offensively was definitely a big part of it. The rotation as well, like you talked about, but guys are starting to throw the ball really, really well. And I think a lot of guys have upside to play better. I think that's part of the glass half full going forward. Look, we do have some streaky hitters. If you look at some of the guys you talked about, Harris is a great example. He's all-world center fielder, hasn't won a Gold Glove yet, but I think he'll have a bunch by the time his career is over. But he's been streaky. Even last year, got off to a slow start, missed 2 months, came back and was incredible in August and September, and even going into the short playoff series against San Diego, he was our best player there by far. Same thing happened to him specifically in 23, got off to a slow start, and then he caught fire. So, based on his past, that's kind of been what he's done here the last few years. It's not for lack of effort and work ethic and all those things, but he has been streaky. He's a young player. Albies has had some on and off years, but he's been a silver slugger and an all-star, and these guys are young, talented players. So you love to have just deep lineups, 1 through 9, that guys can go through slow starts, spurts, hot streaks, cold streaks, and you still are scoring runs. We're doing a much better job the last few weeks from an offensive standpoint. I do think when Ronald comes back, that can only help. But like you said, I think guys have had good seasons. I think they have a chance to be great. So I do think it'll improve and get better. And, the fact that we've still been playing well here the last 2 or 3 weeks with not everything firing on all cylinders at this point does make me optimistic for the remaining 3.5 plus months that we have left.
Yeah, as a way to wrap this up, Alex, we were talking at the top of the show how good the National League is. The NL East for a while was you and the Phillies, and it looks like the Mets are going to be part of your life now for a
Oh, yeah.
while. Right owner, right head of baseball operations, right manager.
Right owner.
Yeah, right owner, right GM,
Sure.
right.
Gotta give them
Yeah.
all credit.
What do you think from a distance of your division, and them in specific now and moving forward?
Yeah, I look at this stuff as, people look at payrolls and things like that, and I think it's who runs these teams, right? From the manager to the general manager to the owner. I mean, all these teams. Dave Dombrowski's going to end up in the Hall of Fame. David Stearns, arguably top GM in the game, top 2, 3, 4, wherever you want to put him, right? But definitely great. I don't know Carlos Mendoza, but he did a phenomenal job a year ago at this time. Rob Thompson's brought his team to the World Series and had great success. And, I don't want to take anything away from the other teams. I think Miami's definitely moving in the right direction. The way they're playing, how athletic they are, and so on. The Washington Nationals, Mike Rizzo's won divisions, been in the postseason a lot. Dave Martinez, both of them have won a World Series. So this division is stacked. It's loaded. It's got great experience, and it's going to be a challenge forever. As long whoever's in this division, whoever's sitting in these chairs. So, but beyond the division, you're worried about all these other teams in the NL, and the depth of it and the competitiveness is as good as it's been in the 8 years that I've been in this job with the Braves. So it's going to be very difficult to make the playoffs. I think all 6 that do will have earned it 100%. And, I think we're right there now, but we got a long way to go. And I think it's going to come down to the wire, but it's great. It's great for the game with the competition, with the parity. I think September is going to be very, very exciting.
Yeah, Alex, I always think the sign of a well-run organization is they get gifts you don't see coming. This year, like the Eli Whites, the Drake Baldwins, the AJ Smith-Shawvers, and you're getting them because obviously you do a great job there. And really, our listeners and viewers should know we asked you just a couple of hours ago if you had some time for us this week, and you said, "Yep, can you do it today?" And you jumped on and joined us. And you're a friend of the show, and John and I truly appreciate you joining us on the show.
All right, guys, really appreciate that and always glad to do it.
John and I, of course, thank Alex Anthopoulos for joining us on the show. John, hit or error?
I'll give a hit to Major League Baseball. They had their best attendance weekend, early season attendance weekend in 13 years. That means anytime before Memorial Day, they averaged 35,000 fans for rivalry weekend. Obviously, we had three sellouts in New York, but they were drawing all over the place. People are really buying into the rivalries, and I think they're buying into baseball.
Yeah, John, I love a full house. I thought it was great. I thought the weekend was great. The Soto stuff notwithstanding, the fans were into the games. The games were good. It was good to be out there at Yankee Stadium. John, I'll give a hit, a rare one, right? We're going to both give hits this week. You touched on this a little earlier in the show. The Yankee rotation looked like it was going to be a real issue beyond the Fried Rodon combination. And they left April not in good shape. And I went and looked this morning. They have the second best rotation ERA in the sport in May. May's only 3 weeks old, but it's a sign that I think you hit it all. Schmidt came back from the injured list. Will Warren has kind of settled in and pitched really well now for like three starts. Can he keep that going? And you know what? Ryan Yarborough went into the rotation and he's brought a high level of competence. How long could that go? What you want it to go is at least until Luis Heel gets back and at least until they make a trade in July. That's what they need. And I think we mentioned with Alex Anthopoulos, good organizations get what they need. And I think the Yankees have been a good organization for a long time. And they're problem solvers. There's something they like about Ryan Yarborough. He's doing this. They believed in Will Warren. He's doing this. So I give them a hit for like the Orioles rotation started bad and has gotten worse. The Blue Jay rotation started bad, has gotten worse. The Red Sox rotation has started bad, gotten worse. Everyone else in their division's rotation has a worse ERA in May than it did in April. Theirs is much better. It's one of the reasons they have the biggest division lead at 5.
I mean, they do a great job. I think the Brian Cashman criticism has been muffled at least for the moment.
48 hours, I assume, until
It's,
two-game losing
it's a
streak.
it's a bit over the top. I mean, they've had all winning seasons since 1993, right? So that's a pretty good record. I mean, just say that, and what do you say to that? So yeah, and you notice all the small things, and Ryan Yarborough's been more than a small thing. He's been good. Warren's got that sweeper. Now I'm talking real uh, esoteric stuff, big vertical movement. So he's looking pretty
Vert. The
good.
kids call it Vert, John.
Okay, all right, I'll defer to you on that. And Schmidt is living up to his predictions about himself. I mean, it's good to have confidence. He and Michael King always had that confidence, and certainly King is a star now, and Schmidt's a very good pitcher. So, yeah, they've done a really, really good job.
Yeah, again, without Garrett Cole for the whole year and without Luis Heel so far, uh, really good job. Tommy Hogan is always, again, this was a quickie to do this today, and Tommy has always jumped in and helped us as he always does. Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, please rate and review us. It really does help the show when you do those things. It also helps the show if you give us a view on the New York Post Sports YouTube page. And obviously, we want you all to continue to stick with us on the show with Joel Sherman and Jon Heyman.